Folks, we are getting set here for the middle match of the day. It's going to be Arial Arise taking on Nokturns. Bit of a separation in the standings, much like the last match, but unlike Game and Gladiators, who had a shot and, you know, they seized that opportunity, it's going to be a lot tougher of a run, I think, for Nokturns on this one. But let's start with the top team, at least the top team coming into the day, Arial Arise.
Yeah, I mean, Arial's been an absolute dominant force so far this stage. They haven't played a single game where they have dropped all the points. They managed to squeak by and get those points. And right now, I think they're just sitting 2 points behind One Shot after that overtime loss that One Shot just had. So this is going to be a big game to kind of try and maintain their supremacy on the top of the leaderboard. You've got really big names in here. You got Freak, Mohesi J, Reed, and Reed Sync. Like, these are players that have been playing around for a while now, minus Reed Sync, who have a very good core understanding of the game. I coach them personally. I know they're all hardworking individuals. And, you know, I think we're in for an absolute treat of a game because of that.
Now, Nokturns, they have had flashes of brilliance. They've shown Connor at times that they can get it together as a team, but it's been a rough stage. I mean, the future hopefully is promising, though.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for Nokturns is that you have the dual IGL system. They're actually better on their attacks than they are on their defense, which is a little bit interesting considering the kind of entirety of CL has been a little bit more towards the defender side on almost every single map. When you have players like Nyx, you have players like Papa P, Mr. Poison coming in on your IGLs, they are pretty explosive on the attacking side. They like to make their adjustments and stuff like that, and all of a sudden they'll get a good read, do some attacker repick shenanigans, and then hit the site fast, or just hit the site in some sort of inventive way. They have been fun to watch. However, they haven't really been able to string together 2 consecutive strong sides, except against some of the lower end teams. And now going up against Arial Arise, definitely a much more daunting task.
Connor, I noticed you were careful not to mention Slothy's name at all, and I thank you for that.
Not.
Now, with Arial Arise Forceful, they, like West Garfield Park, come into the day on a 5-game win streak. Points in every game, even the ones that they haven't won. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, they've been just absolutely dominant, and I think the biggest point for them is they just need to be consistent, especially on the defensive half. They seem to be running people's pockets. We were talking about how this is kind of like an attacker-sided meta. Well, recently, you know, Arial Rise has got an 83% win rate on the last few play days that they have on the defensive half. Keep pulling out these 5-1 halves on defense. It's absolutely nuts. And I think the biggest thing that's going to be key if they want to have success on attack, they want to have success on defense, has got to be that information. You know, Nokturns is a team that likes to have these little pocket shots. We saw yesterday versus West Garfield Park, they had these quick little rushes where they're shuffling into sight. So defensive information, really vital, making sure they're able to, you know, react to these plays they want to make. And then things like spawn peaks, not getting tripped up. Just keep playing the game you're playing, keep it simple. And I think, you know, Arial Rise should have a really good time in this game.
Yeah, I agree completely, because at a fundamental level, you want to say the foundations for Arial Rise should be a little bit stronger than what we've seen with Nokturns, which has been shaky at times, especially when you're talking about the defensive side, the way that they cut intel, all that other stuff. But speaking of the defensive side for Nokturns, there is a little bit of an elephant in the room, Tanner, that we've talked about, mainly Exod being -20 and almost -10 on entry, and most of those deaths are on the defensive side on his roam. I think it's time for him to kind of play a little bit more passive, try to get him in sight, try to keep him alive for the late round, maybe move somebody like Nyx on a little bit more of an aggressive role.
Maybe. I don't know if you want to switch things up. I know Dauntless, he's got a pretty good strat book, and if you start switching things up last minute, especially on one day's notice like this, it's not going to be looking too good. You're going to have to look for Exod to kind of pick up his own game individually.
Tanner, yeah. I loved your point about info. We know that this is an info heavy game, Rainbow Six Siege, but we find a lot in T2. You've got teams that seem to sometimes forget that, and then other teams who are very good at it and capitalize. And Arial Arise is one of those teams, and I mean, that's also why you have a big map pool when you're a team that capitalizes on info.
Yeah, I mean, Arial is just an absolute powerhouse when it comes to the map pool, but so is Nokturns. I got to give Nokturns credit. They've played, I believe they've played 7 of the 9 maps so far this stage, which means that big map advantage that Arial is used to or accustomed to, we're not actually going to see it come into effect here. Just want to round off a couple bands here that catch my eye. You know, Cafe, that's a counter band. That's a good band that Nocturne like to play. We saw how dominant they looked against One Shot. I know One Shot played very poorly, but to Nocturne's credit, they played very strong on that map. And then you go look at it from the flip side. Another counter band coming up from the side of Nocturnes. This is what we like to see from our T2 teams, right? Is you look at your opponent, you're well versed in all the maps, so that way you can kind of go, okay, what is my opponent's best maps, and let's remove them. That being said, Arial Arise left it between Bank and Skyscraper, and those are two maps. I was joking around with the guys. They're like, we're never going to get to play these maps ever again. So I think Arial Arise are very pleasantly surprised that Nocturnes are willing to take them to this map. We should be seeing, and I'm very curious to see, you know, what do Nocturnes have in store that are going to be able to surprise Arial Arise on this map?
Yeah,
Connor,
for the side of
yeah,
I was gonna say for Nocturnes Bank, we have gotten to see it one singular time, and it was pretty early on in the season against LSR, which at the time was a really good result of only a 5-7 loss. However, as time went on, then just a couple weeks ago, an Arial Arise team proceeded to absolutely obliterate a certain LSR team on this map of Bank 7-2. So, with Arial Arise having an insanely strong bank, and Nocturnes maybe could hit a little bit of counter review. Maybe they've changed things up a bit because it was like Playday 2 or Playday 1 that they played it. However, I just don't see this going their way, considering how good Arial Arise have looked on both the attacking and defensive side of this map.
Well, it's time now. We are going to go back to our second bank of the day. Arial Arise taking on Nocturnes.
Second bank of the day, but will it follow the same trend? Maybe if Arial Arise with those great defenses that Forceful mentioned, maybe if they can pull a one-shot, go 5-1 on their bank defenses, maybe that could be the game against Nocturnes.
Well, potentially, and in general, both these teams, they have a relatively solid regiment on paper, but only now has only now has Arial Arise really been able to show that. They've now managed to skyrocket their way all the way to a top team here in CL, where Nocturnes, they're still kind of at the bottom right now, which is quite shocking because, again, they looked like a really good team going into the first couple weeks of their playdays, and then everything just kind of went downhill from there. And one thing to note in particular, those pocket strats that were briefly mentioned by Nocturnes, it always seems like they're just missing some sort of key factor when they're being involved. One thing to note in particular, one of the off-stream games for Nocturnes, when they went for a Civic Plant style, when they were going in down against the basement attack, they just forgot about one key position inside a garage, and it completely faltered that actual plant setup itself. And in general, they tend to have a lot of those overlying issues where they just forget one key moment of their push in general. So if they keep making those exact same mistakes going up against such a solid team such as Arial Arise, they might not find all that much success going into this best of one matchup.
We'll see an Osa ban come out from Nocturnes. They flirted with that before. They did it on Skyscraper against ATK, a team that has run Osa quite a bit, and against Arial Arise, which tend to lead a little bit more structured, who can make big use of that Osa. Not all that surprising. Beyond the rest of the ban phase, again, between these two teams on bank as well, we've seen basically this play-by-play before. Hibana, it's an Arial Arise ban on this map. Hibana Mira, they've banned this on bank before, so really overall, not to be too surprised by these bans. And Arial Arise, sure, the Osa might be off the board, but I doubt they'll be stopped too much or stumped too much by it.
Lockers and CCTV going to be the first sight here for Arial Arise. No Vigil on the board, so it can potentially make this room clear a bit easier, as all of your drones will spot out any roamer. No little white flashes here and there to maybe catch you off guard, to not know the pinpoint location of a Vigil lurking about. But for the most part, I feel like that roam game is still going to be just about the same. Oryx now on the board here for Freak, so he's going to have a ton of mobility throughout the entire map here for round one. And instead of having a super high emphasis on the actual roam game, it appears for Arial Arise they want to actually have more of this pressure stacked up into the bottom floor. They're rocking both the Smoke and the Chonka, along with a Wamai and Goyo as well. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of stall potential here. So if Nocturnes end up wasting their own time going in for a full top to bottom clear, they might be in for a lot of trouble when descending all the way to that basement.
They do have one operator who could pierce through all that noise. They do have Nyx rocking the Nook right now. We saw that banned earlier on that previous bank game. And that is an operator who, if you just need to get a quick pick, or well, get an easy pick, I should say. Might not be quick, might spend a minute and a half creeping down a hallway, but could still be a pick. That could be something to just maybe skip a step for Nocturnes if Nyx is able to get that Nook in a nice spot, maybe somewhere around the site to make something happen. Beyond that, we'll see them start out with that top floor. There is Freak upstairs and Mo close down below, so if they wanted to move in, they might have found someone, but Freak has already given up that space before even really 30 seconds gone.
Doesn't want to risk losing that first confrontation, as nobody was there to immediately back him up. Freak and Mo were separate by a whole floor, and now they're playing buddy-buddy for the time being. Nocturns not wasting all that much time though. They were able to spot out the Oryx fading away. So they're going to take quick control near the marble stairs and try to work their way down near the open area side to maybe force Mo away. He has that hatch fallback as an option if need be. And again, the buddy system is quite strong so far between himself and Freak. So nothing really too big to be concerned about. But Nocturns looks like they're going for a surprise play. They just drop down the vault hatch and try to work their way in through gold to just find a couple of kills here and there.
They play it very slow, too, just all walking down red. Jay's not at all aware of Slothy making his way down the hallway. Reed Sync, too, caught completely off guard. Nyx has taken garage control as well to cement this further for the attack, but Freak starts getting involved. Him and Mo, the duo moving down marble. Now the only two left. Freak will try to change the equation, move over to gold hatch or vault to try and drop down, but Exod is more than ready for that. Mo, likely all he can really do is probably try his best to win a lost round at this point. He's got a couple hatches open up to play vertical off of, but Nocturns have basically retreated from all of those areas that could see it. Slothy and Poison are both watching it, but they're not visible whatsoever from this angle. Nyx also inside a garage can help if he pushes down marble, which appears to be the play that Mo is staking round number 1 on, and one that is likely not all that successful as he gives himself up to the angle held by Exod. He downs Poison. That's good. But beyond that, it's been a one Nocturns round for about a minute now.
Those pocket strats, once again, being a very heavy comfort of Nocturns because of that quick little adaptation and play. Dropping down to the vault hatch, they're able to get a pretty solid round win already in the books. But they can't try to replicate that exact same strat every single time they attack the CCTV bomb site. We saw a couple of those pocket strats the last time they played up against West Garfield Park yesterday on Clubhouse, and those strats did work, but again, when they had to go for more of the default approaches, things definitely looked a bit weaker on their side. But again, that's not to take away from an already fantastic round by them. They noticed the weaknesses that were there in the site, especially if they pushed in through vaults. They immediately capitalized, and again, they just had a beautiful round and now are forcing Arial to change up their pace and try to actually defend staff this time instead.
Likely see more of an emphasis on the hold on the top floor this time, as we traditionally see on open area. Likely maybe Jay playing outside of stock, trying to hold behind a shield in that hallway. But, well, the twist here is that there is no shield. So if you do want to do that, it might be in a little bit more tricky of a position. So probably just see Jay maybe hold a little bit more loosely with someone upstairs or hold somewhere else off the site. Down below could be one contender. We'll have to see what Arial opt to go for beyond Freak. Running around the map is Oryx, which, to be fair, we can always count on with Arial.
Always one of their favorites to bring out. Makes a lot of sense. Whole lot of hatch drop-in potential, a big map to go roam about, and something I always mention on the Oryx, again, just that high mobility, able just to kind of rush around the map as freely as you want to, as long as you just, you know, don't die. That's always the one big thing to be worried about, so it's nice to have in your back pocket for Arial. Nocturne looks like they want to approach this from more of the lobby side of the map, maybe trying to work their way up gold stairs, for example, to try to deal with Freak almost immediately. And if they get that top floor control, they can then begin to play for vertical. That could help deal with the slight lurk extension and maybe some of the actual anchor players themselves over near open area. So not a bad idea in the slightest by Nocturnes. It's just, again, a matter of how effective they can be in terms of getting this first clear over and done with on the top floor.
Clearing out that top floor. Poison, big position right there, able to cut down that long hallway, that elevator hallway on the second floor. He's static, of course. The more active players will be Nyx, Slothy, and the third, I guess, prong of that, but Nyx, unfortunately, gets a little bit trigger-happy. Takes down Slothy on the opposite side of that wall, and that ends up giving Arial a dominant advantage as everyone down below on that clear ends up falling. 2 to enemy bullets and 1 from friendly fire. Now, Exxon has to go pick up the diffuser and also pick up the pieces from what is a complete and utter disaster for Nocturnes.
A great reaction by Arial to immediately punish Nocturnes. Looks like a bit of self-punishment was made as well, especially by Nyx off the bat. A minute 20 to go. There is still time to maybe redeem yourself a bit, but it is a 4 versus 2 position, and you still have a lot of this map to actually clear out. Poison currently by his lonesome over near the bottom of marble stairs, right near the vault lobby itself, is trying to work a kill him towards the castle. Doesn't seem to be all that effective. At least Exod A recovers the case, and B tries to get aggressive. Nets 2 kills, so things are equalized. 50 seconds though, and not a whole lot of information as to where everyone is actually playing at, and because of that, Carter, Mo eventually trades against Exod. Case has been dropped once again, and the man advantage swings in the favor of Arial for a second time.
I mean, it was Exod versus the world right there, as Poison was just running around chasing his own ghosts down below, trying to find something to do, and, well, his teammate found something, found 2 kills, but now with the diffuser dropped, and Poison with no info does win the fight against Freak. An impressive shot, but still one that Mo can win, just playing the crossfire with the diffuser on the floor. Arial Arise lose one, but answer back with another round win, or, well, 1 round win, but one probably a little closer than they wanted.
And I think we saw roughly like 3 kills there by Mo, just trying to wall bang through the triple wall, what have you, between both the site and actually leading in through archives. I mean, that was a pretty impressive stunt, but also great game sense by the Echo just to deal a bunch of damage and make sure Nocturns really couldn't get away with all that much on that round in particular. It seems like the team play definitely improved a whole tenfold essentially for Arial Arise, and now they get to try their best over in the top 4 of CEO. And something we tend to mention from time to time is the inability to rotate all that safely on this top 4 site, and also just that general presence of the window play that is always such a huge hassle for these defenders. So depending on how Nocturns want to play, they could really get highly agile, I suppose, against Arial Arise, maybe just to try to counteract them as quickly as humanly possible.
Well, in a way, getting agile was able to stop Arial Arise in round number 1, but in a unorthodox way, or a way you might not expect when you say the phrase getting fast against another team. See how it ends up working here. Is one thing we did not mention, Valkyrie on the board, John. Got those black eye cameras in play, but Nyx on the IQ, to be fair, to balance that out, to counteract it. Will it be enough? Will it be enough to truly stop the roam or any kind of aggression Arial Arise could put forth? I mean, it might be able to stop the black eye cameras, but, I mean, Freak's been peeking things without much info in the past couple rounds, so I don't think it'll stop him too much.
Didn't really seem like it. And the buddy system here for the roam game doing quite well. Slothy with the Twitch run actually breaks a smidge of utility, maybe help out the rest of Nocturns later on. And looks like they're going to opt to actually go in from the top floor clear first and foremost, already trying to open up a couple walls near the side of Stock, maybe force Jay a little bit farther back and away, and then the late rotation done by Exod will be made over near ATM as well, along with Nick just playing out on that window repel, which is oh so common when attacking this top floor. So everything going according to plan so far for Nocturns. They just need to actually maybe throw out couple pieces of utility here and there just to really force the hand of Jay to go for that fallback, but looks like he'll just do it on his own accord to hold a longer angle to try to stop anyone hopping in directly through Stock.
Yeah, good timing as those Selma charges collide with the Stock wall. His very position opened up and nullified, so he'll rotate to a new one and hold that longer angle, as you said. There is one player down below who could move up Marble if Jay starts feeling any pressure, or if Lackey, starts pushing up down that long hallway. See what they decide to do? One interesting thing to note, by the way, no C4s on the board. Mo opted to go with impacts over the C4, so he might be down below playing that vertical, but he actually can't go for that C4 play, well, because he doesn't have it. So a little bit of an awkward position right there, one that might not be as good, but both him and Freak down below will now just wait, along with the rest of the site players, as they wait to see what exactly Nocturns are going for.
Comes the window play by Nyx, trying to see if anyone wants to get a little bit over aggressive in this final 70 seconds, but there really is no true reason for Arial Arise to do that. They're not at the disadvantage, and they still have tons of utility to actually slow down Nocturns once they eventually go in for this final execute. We still have the commitment, though, made by Exod to maybe go on that late rotation over around instead of ATM, and still tons of information is being gathered here by Nocturns. It really will just be a war of attrition at this point to see who comes out on top in these final 40 seconds.
Poison is now moved into the building, repelled in at the top of square stairs. Lackey also there for coverage to make sure that Poison isn't felled by a flank up square. He finally vaults in with a diffuser, starts planning behind the desk. Again, no C4 means that he's safe to get this bomb down, but Nocturne is succeeding so well on the coverage that it doesn't really matter all that much. Mo is a complete non-starter down below. Doesn't even move while the bomb is going down, and once he flanks up, he gets one kill. The Poison, he's there watching, but he's a little concerned, dealing with too many angles at once. Both him and Jay catch him in a crossfire, but it's still Mo with the 2-piece. Slothy finally going huge, peeks out, takes down the 2 players who cut down Poison in turn. Freak's found his way into sight, but he's got to get the bomb or start defusing it. There's one player on the rappel, one player who can also peek from the head holes, and one from the rappel as well. Overall, just an extremely well-coordinated attack by Nocturns, despite Mo getting a couple kills on the flank.
Yeah, extreme patience and a whole lot of discipline out by Nocturns in that round, still having the full back push, having Nyx be very meticulous about when exactly he wanted to actually reveal himself over near the window rappel, taking his sweet time in that department. And with Nocturns, they still had everything taken care of in that round. You mentioned the basically I would say inability for Mo to really do anything at the right time there. I'd have to agree. He was just playing on that roam game. He didn't stop the plant from happening because he didn't have the nitro cell, and I guess didn't have enough proper information to spot out when or where that plant was actually going down inside of sight. And when eventually he did go on that flank, it was just far too late. The damage had already been done, and there was just too much of an emphasis by Nocturns over near the square side of the site. So once again, a good job by Nocturns towards the end of that round just to clean things up and guarantee they get another round win on their attacks.
Going back to basement now for Arial Arise. Nocturnes running with their full clear yet again, trying to be as thorough on this top floor as they possibly can be. They were able to find Jay early on last time, but that wasn't really because of, well, a roam clear. They hot breached and hot dropped down the main lobby hatch into Vault and were able to completely take control of the site before Arial could react in time. As you mentioned, we doubted we would see that again, and what do you know, we will likely not, as Nyx is not on that Nook. So we can see what they truly have to offer by fully clearing out this top floor and this middle floor, with that Jackal likely trying to hunt down Freak.
So far, the team play has been rather good by Nocturns when dealing with this roam game, able to force it back at a pretty decent time frame. Nyx actually almost lands a wallbang all the way through the window rappel, but it's just barely going to miss out, and will continue to reattempt that same exact swing, and because of that, Freak will just move a little bit closer in towards Janitor and just try to waste a bit more time, having extra backup now by Reed Adams playing on this top floor with him as well. Only now they eventually go for the fallback, as they've wasted about that rough time frame of the 50 seconds to minute mark, and now move their way back down into the first floor with Reed Sync off screen, finding one pick. It's an immediate rush up inside of the actual site, but Poison gets too aggressive and drops Case near one of the main hatches leading down into that basement floor, and that could be a golden opportunity for Arial Arise just to play keep away on this Case.
But with Lackey alone right now, he's got to hold out until his teammates can help join him. There's a couple above the hatch as well that he's very much concerned about peeking him, that he will focus all of his attention on. Exod on blue stairs right now. Lackey peeks, but Reed fires first, able to take the head off of the Finka. Now Exod late. Well, late enough if you wanted to save the Finka, he'll now rush on in. Nyx has recovered the diffuser, planting not inside of server, but inside of lockers instead. He's the only one left now. He's got the diffuser, but Mo with that long angle on Marble shuts it down. Seemed like what was going to be a chaotic and very quick round took a long pause that seemed just to be a slow death for Nocturnes in the late round.
And I really got a question there, the ideology of Poison. Maybe he only had coverage by the Finka, perhaps, so he had to get aggressive to go for a kill. It just seemed such a risky play, such a gamble to go swing wide in nowhere near of a good position to go for that plant with the Case in your back pocket as the thermite. But I guess you kind of play devil's advocate. There was still some hatch pressure by Arial Arise, and there just was an overwhelming man issue for Nocturnes when they went for that surprise attack. But that also begs the question, if you're not in a good position to go for the surprise attack, then why are you going to do it? You have all this time in the world. Take your time, set yourself up. We've noticed Nocturnes, when they have the ability to do that, they manage to play the round flawlessly, essentially. But when they jump the gun, they just fail sometimes. And again, it's that key aspect of missing one or two things when going in for that site push that really has the make or break for Nocturnes, and normally it ends up forcing them to break underneath all that pressure, Carter.
Open area was certainly around where they broke underneath that pressure, or at least just broke in general. Wasn't really much pressure clearing out that roam inside of Archives, because it wasn't really a roam. There was one guy, and 3 players went in to clear him. Now, if you heard that in isolation, you'd think, oh, you know, maybe they went 1 for 1. Maybe there was a crossfire and they went a 4v3. And, well, that is effectively what happened, but Nyx ended up shooting his teammate, and then it was a complete disaster at that point. So, even on clearing out that roam, there were a couple missteps, but mainly just Arial Arise, excluding the team kill, having a solid setup to try and counteract somebody if they go to clear out Reed Sync early. Nocturnes aren't even really focusing on that area whatsoever this go around, and that might change, but I doubt it will now that Freak has gotten his first kill in the first 30 seconds.
Well, although the roam clear was relatively decent by Nocturns in the earlier parts of this first half. It looks like Freak is actually able to change that factor and find not only 1 but 2 kills. The Jackal gone as well. So much of this information is now completely off the board for Nocturns, and although they have a couple of grenades and although they have a couple of Candelas here and there, they still are not able to deal with Freak properly. That's a third for the Oryx, and it's already this 5 versus 2 in quite literally the first minute of this round, and make it 4 for Freak. He's still alive on this top floor and potentially looking for an ace. He might just find it. So close, but yet so far away. Reed Adams is here to back him up. This could be the final nail in the coffin here for Nocturns, as they really have nothing else to fall back on.
Reed Adams in going for the stoic 1K to try to steal Freak's ace right now. A little bit of BM right there, but I mean, it's a 1v5. Give him, I'll cut him some slack. 2 players now pushing up that hallway. Reed Adams, does not get it downed on the floor as the Yokai stuns Lackey, but Freak only on 1 HP. He can have the ace right here. They have the active intel. Lackey will heal himself just a little bit and reload that LMG. He's got no bullets in it right now, and unfortunately for him, he can reload, but Arial Arise have active intel on his position. Freak finally downs him, but he's on the floor. He can revive himself. Can he get the ace? No, Lackey backs out, and Freak downs himself with the Rima dash. This has been an incredible round, if I do say so myself.
Getting kill hungry there in the final minute. Wanted his kill there. Maybe it was a tactical bait as well to allow Freak to get that ace, having Reed Adams actually die in that position. But now being down, there is no way he's going to be able to get the full 5K, but a valiant attempt. I'll admit that. Nade gets thrown. Seems to be a bit too far away, and still constant intel is being gathered on this Finca. There really is no chance that Nocturns are going to come out on top of this round as a win. No chance about it.
I like it. We can end this one now. I mean, like, we had our fun and games for like 30 seconds left. You just got the fuser, Sure, it's a 1v3. You're about to get your confirmed kill on Freak. That's good. You even have an Adrenal Surge to heal you up just a little bit more. We've only got 20 seconds left. You're pushing in through Small Office, which will undoubtedly be a 3-way crossfire for Arial Arise to hold. I mean, what do you have going for you? You just give yourself up to Mo. Which I can respect that. He denies Freak the ace. We can say that. But he does give Arial Arise their 3rd defensive win.
Yeah, well, that was one of the funniest death cams I've seen in quite a little while, Carter. I have not seen the Ariama dash death bleed out in quite some time, if ever, actually. That might have been the first time for me, and I don't even think Arial Arise were fully expecting Freak to do that well on the roam game. Maybe find...
No, I was going to say, probably the first time it's happened in, like, comp history. Somebody downs themselves with a Rima dash and bleeds out.
And not get finished off, that's true, but... In general, Arial Arise are probably expecting either Freak to fall back in about a minute or so, maybe find a kill here and there, and that kind of be the end of story, where it was the polar opposite. He played there the entire round and only died from his own hand, just by bleeding out, trying to dash in through a wall Kool-Aid style, and it looks like the glass in that jar of Kool-Aid ended up shattering in that particular moment. But hey, still the advantage, still going to CEO. They had a pretty decent time in the early game, keeping Nocturns at a distance, but again, the structure for the offense was just too good for Arial Arise to really do anything, and there were a couple players that were just pretty much non-existent in that round to basically make it that 5vx before a single kill was even found by either team as well.
And we do see some changes from Arial Arise. They give up the Valkyrie, but they also instead take, I believe, a castle, who still, no C4. So if they want to play that vertical, they're still lacking some tools to do it, but they still have some on-site intel. Reed is bringing that. Reed Adams still makes me happy when I wake up every day and I remember that I have to cast a team that has Reed and Reed on it. I love both of them. They don't make my job easy. We do see right now that, John, I was going to talk about the Finca, or not the Finca, the Valkyrie, but we have a Ying right now, prepped on that CEO Repel, and with those 4 Candelas, perhaps we'll see them go in pretty quick.
And relying so heavily on this plant, I like the idea of having Nyx be able to play for vertical, if not to stop anyone from going on a C4 trick in the beginning parts of this round when the plant goes down, at least to have some sort of coverage once the diffuser actually goes down. A really good idea employed here by Nocturns, but again, they are relying very heavily on actually entering in the site, and they're not even going to be able to get the hard wall opened up just yet. I almost thought for a minute we would see a window repel hop in to let that plant go down, but Poison is not going in for that commitment just yet. They might actually wait for Exod to fully rotate around and utilize those Selmas to actually get an avenue of approach here for Nocturns.
Nyx now looking to make his way into square. Skeleton key prepped. Smoke grenades going out. Slothy finally repels in as all the utility activates in a symphony of flashes. Slothy instead crouching, creeping on in as Mo peeks. He's felled by the T-95. Reedsync, the only one left who will peek out in turn. Maybe try to find Nyx, who moves into the site. Exod prone outside the janitor doorway, waiting to cut him off, but instead Reed peeks and Exod strikes. 3-3 even between these two teams. So we move into the side swap.
And with just enough space to be made by those Candelas, it allowed Nocturns to find 2 immediate left hooks. It threw Arial in a spur, and we had a couple of kills found here and there by the Maestro, but just not enough to really stave off Nocturns, as they were hungry for that round win. But still, a good attempt to try to at least keep Nocturns at a safe distance was simply just not enough. Everything being thrown, including the kitchen sink, in that round at the exact same time. It just, again, was just a little bit too much for Arial. So that 3-3 split going into round number 7, at least the pocket strats worked out incredibly well for Nocturns. But when they did try to employ a bit more structure on their rounds and not try to go for those savory plays that we always love to highlight, it did seem like they were a little bit lackluster against Arial. But maybe on the second half, that could change.
We'll have a bit of a tactical pause, or technical pause real quick. It is an important distinction. One is a timeout that is up to teams' discretion as to when they can take, or they have a minute to confer over strategy. This is a technical pause in which one of your teammates probably crashes. We have to take it to allow your team to get back in the lobby. Though you can still confer about what you want to do. So that is an important similarity. It's not like they're silent this entire time. Arial have the opportunity to think over their first attack while we try to get Reed Adams back in the lobby. One thing we see, by the way, right now, you can't see it, but we can. Mo's on the Nook. John, one thing I did not expect when Bank first entered the pool was with how prevalent we would actually see Nook on this map. It's like not every round. It's not a common thing, but it's more often than enough, especially in comparison to other maps, that very pleasant surprise whenever I cast it. I know Harrison and Jonah are not fans of Bank, but I do appreciate the fact that we get to see Nook a lot more often than other maps.
Especially, it allows the capabilities of having more than one avenue of approach. For Nook, you could normally just kind of work your way in through Dirt Tunnel, for example, and just kind of, shimmy your way in through, whether that be through dirt, maybe even go through garage as well. A lot of options really open up here when you are in that Nook. And if you don't want to be super sneaky on that roll, you could also just have the factor of grenades. That's always nice. Grenades in the meta right now are fantastic. We currently have 4 sets of them. Looks like Arial might be harping on the grenade play a whole lot in this round, unless we have a couple of repicks here and there. But for now, looks like there will be a lot of explosivity here done by Arial, quite literally and potentially figuratively as well, depending, on their actual play style.
I hyped at the Nook before we even got in the lobby, so I'm really hoping that Mo does not attack or repick it right now. That'd be super dope if he didn't do that. So I'm gonna just like... I'm going to hang out for about 3 more seconds to make sure that I don't look like a fool. You got to be kidding me, dude.
Oh.
Literally the last second.
Yep.
I mean, he switched to Finka, so, fair. But come on, man. I just talked about how excited I was, and he just rained on my entire parade. Again, going to Finka, it's not a bad pick. You got the gun, you got the nades. Doesn't even have the LMG. He's running the spear. You got the nades, you got the gun, the adrenal surges. It's fine. Whatever. It's Finka.
I was going to say, I was expecting, maybe because LMG go burr, and he was bringing the
What's everyone using the spear today? Cords was doing it, now Mo's doing it?
It's not a bad gun, I'll admit that. But, with the LMG meta, just holding down M1 for such a long amount of time, punishing anybody that wants to overswing you, it's just such a crutch. But, gotta commend the nobility of Mo for just running the AR this time about. We talked about the garage play being a potential, especially with a Nook on the board. It'll still happen, but without the Nook, unfortunately. Still grenades, though, in the pocket of Mo. That can be important. Still plenty of self-destruction as well with those Ash charges and the Gone Sticks you highlighted a moment ago as well. But it looks like Nocturns, they've detected that, so now they're playing both near Marble Stairs and also maybe having Exod go for an incredibly long angle with an impact hole or some sort of kill hole being made on the single wall from garage just to look in through the site and have a deadly angle to keep Arial at a very far distance.
Slothy dodged a nade as well. Speaking of far distance, nade tossed all the way from main door. It goes in the opposite wall of Slothy, or the opposite side of the wall he's standing on. So he'll dodge death. for at least a few more seconds until the attack turns their attention towards him once again. C4 actually goes out from Slothy, but explodes into nothingness, just sends a sound in, careening around and reverberating off the walls in main lobby, but not much beyond that. Instead, Arial Arise making their way on in, looking to go for a call. They'll just break open the elevator hatch, rip it open just like Nokturns did their first basement attack, but Nokturns might be ready for this. It's a 5v5. They have all these angles. Utility as well as Nyx put some smoke down on the elevator drop, but they've made their way into lockers. One goes down, Freak with the first pick in garage, but a beautiful C4 from Lackey sends shrapnel sent through that wall, downs Reed Adams, and Reed Sink, really love it, picks up the diffuser. Starting to put the bomb on the floor. He's got Jay and Mo for coverage, but half make that both end up falling. Now Reed Sink, the only one left. He's got the diffuser. A nice shot on the poison, but only 1 HP to deal with Nyx. 2 smoke canisters as well. Nyx doesn't even have to peek. If he knows where this bomb is going down, he can throw a smoke, detonate it, and Reed will not be able to retreat in time. Takes a long angle fight against Nyx. The first one goes out, but goes too short. Reed Sink can get the bomb now effectively, and Nyx, he's got to wait. Got to wait for Reed to rotate and then play off of that. One more smoke, maybe to deny a line of sight. Maybe burn some more time. Some utility gone through by Reed Sink as well. He'll open up the wall and create a long angle to look through. Nyx will start to stick it. Likely a bait waiting for Reed Sink to peek. He sprints and there it goes. A simple spray, 1 bullet is enough to put Reed Sink on the floor and get Nokturns their first defensive win.
Well, Nyx just making sure his crouch key works at the very end of that round. Arial Arise, I guess, just not having enough time maybe to go rotate up above in a blue and actually play for the hatches. That would have been a very good idea, especially against a Smoke who only has the shotgun and SMG, and because of how difficult it can be to actually guard that diffuser where it was placed from inside a server. But I could imagine in a 1v1 on very low HP and now having the diffuser down, you're probably not thinking of something that specific when you know where the smoke is coming from, and that's from the back of that basement site. A good attempt by Arial Arise, but just weren't able to fully dot their I's and cross their T's there when it came in terms of winning some of those key gunfights, giving Nokturns that round in the very end. And now we get to see open area, and for the first time in this matchup in particular, Carter, we get to see a cap cannon play by the side of Nokturns as well.
Yeah, we'll see Lackey bring those EDDs where he decides to put them. We'll have to see. Probably a couple upstairs, couple on the middle floor. Really wherever you want them, just to make entering a little bit more difficult. You can throw them over there. We will see Freak swap to the IQ, likely not in response to the EDDs, just maybe to spot those yokais or any form of electronics, though he can spot the EDDs if he wants to, so if he's looking at doorways, might just spot one. But we do have that Nook, John. We have Mo on it. Now, last time, at the 11th hour, he switched to Finka. I'm hoping he doesn't do it here again. Not because Finka's bad or be a bad pick, but I would just like to see the Nook after I hyped her up how excited I was to see her. Get to see her this time. Happy to see it.
No last second change from Mo.
No last second change.
Thank the Lord. A little bit of variety in our life never hurt anybody. That's always been the one nice thing about Nokturns, is they are willing to change things up, basically on just on the turn of or a flip of a dime, essentially at that point. So it's not really all that unusual to see them go for some risky plays, especially with something like the cap cam, which isn't like overtly risky, but it just is. It sometimes can be quite null on the round, as if those EDDs don't find all that much. It can be a little bit of an upset when you could have had something more active like those black eye cameras feeding you information, or maybe something more like the smoke or the chonker perhaps to play for that actual plant denial on a site like open area. But you know, beggars, they cannot be choosers, and if the EDDs do find something, then hey, that could be a potential kill. And speaking of kills that could actually be found here, we've got the alibi of Slothy playing incredibly close for contact against Freak. This might be something quite huge, especially with that yokai feeding the alibi tons of information right now.
Freak also taking a little bit of damage from somewhere around the building, somewhere. We'll say Slothy has backed himself into a corner right now. One yokai spotted on the floor, so Jay can shoot that. So the one thing that was giving him an edge, now gone. He doesn't have that yokai to provide intel anymore, and he's a bit too far away from the hatch to shut things down. Jay will start moving on in, but they don't drone it. They didn't spot the alibi inside of stock. Slothy not only picks up one, but takes down 2 players for Arial Arise. And more importantly, if he doesn't get this 3rd kill, which he won't, Reed Adams, excuse me, minimizes that. Instead, Mo will open up the site door for the moment, look on in, maybe try to work a pick. But what I was going to say was that Jay had a lot of drones. He had some active, but now he's gone. Might not be able to actively use them anymore, so they're stationary wherever they are. You've got to rely on mode to do a lot of the work to move into the site.
Not too sure whether the drone just missed out the alibi or if we had, oh dear, no. Oh, you hate to see that happen. Cuts me off mid-sentence to mess up the grenade and now force Mo's hand in a very dire situation with the triple wall not even being opened up and the case being across the map with Reed Adams not in a good spot to go for that defuse. So this site push really meaning little to nothing here for Arise except to maybe work a couple of gunfights in your favor. 45 seconds left. Mo gets aggressive, but for a good reason. He catches Exod, goes for a second swing, but Lackey's going to be a little bit quicker on the draw and finds the final two of that round. Nocturns taking yet another one on their defense as there were tons of flaws made by the side of Arial Rise, and once again Nocturns, they were just simply able to capitalize on that one factor.
A good time for a timeout from Arial. I mean, you really lost that round the moment you put 2 feet through the threshold onto bank. Not droning out Slothy inside of stock basically stopped their attack from ever really beginning. You lost that sledge and that IQ. Sure, especially the IQ might not add much in terms of overall utility. She could spot those yokais, but I mean, it's not the same level of damage as, say, a sledge or a thermite. But still, losing 2 big entries right off the bat and the ace taking some damage as well, you're basically just hamstringing yourself into forcing Mo, like you said, to take a risk he might not want to peek into the site to try to bring that to bring the man count back. Then of course the nade was a whole other thing. You know, it just happens. Not going to get into it. It's probably good time for a timeout for Arial. They also know that Nocturne's probably going to CEO after they won open area and basement, so they can also plan for the site they're, well, about to play, as we know.
Not good to see soon. But in particular, back to the point I was making mid-round before we saw a very interesting grenade usage there by Arial Rise. We saw either the drone by Arial Rise completely miss the alibi, or Arial Rise were just so confident in Slothy falling back that they didn't deem it necessary to actually go in for that swing. Either that, or we could have the, you know, the wild card option. Arial Rise just miscommed and didn't actually communicate with the rest of their team that the alibi was actually inside of stock. We have seen a little bit of misplays here and there by Arial Rise in this matchup in particular, so it wouldn't surprise me all that much if they just simply forgot to mention that to anybody. But you cannot be making those kind of mistakes, especially against a team that, again, is just super hyper, incredibly volatile, because off the bat, you'll see punishment. And we saw it there with Slothy to find 2 kills, eventually dead, but he did all the damage required. And then Arial Rise, they just were never able to pick themselves back up in a meaningful way to still get that round as a win. And now they are looking quite close to a potential of seeing match point not favor their side here on Bang.
And we'd certainly all look foolish because Jonah didn't even go with the upset pick this go around. Jonah is all in on Arial Rise, so we would all take a massive L. Nocturnes were to go to match point and then win 1 more after that. Hopefully Arial can have a bit more of a close game, similar to that one-shot game that we just saw. And maybe things like the Flores and the Dokkaebi. We'll see them bring our keys to making that work. Window shot open as the Flores goes on in. A little bit late on that drone, unfortunately. I think, actually, because he got stuck on the window and the wall so much, he ends up being forced to detonate on the opposite side of that wall. So our Terra drone wasted, unfortunately, to clear out that stock position.
Yeah, I believe some of the parts of the wall were not fully opened up on the bottom, so you couldn't just drive right in through, but the second reattempt on the hop-in will be quite spectacular. The shield gone, Lackey playing a tad bit further back, but not too much to really give away this position outright. And if anything, Poison, he's not too far away either, and go for a couple of spray downs with that Alda and be in a pretty good position to keep Arial Rise at bay for just about a little while longer, at least. But Arial Rise, they don't seem all too concerned about just now getting rid of that top floor position. They will just still continue to draw on out, try to break through even more utility, and just guarantee where exactly Lackey has fallen back, and at the very least kind of harass this player inside of Janitor for a little while with those Rotaro drones just to A, confirm his position once again, and B, maybe break some of that vital utility he could be using right now just to hold this key position.
The Reed now opening up the site, or the site being opened up, Reed maybe having a small hand in it. Got a nice angle, but one that's actually provides an opening for Slothy, playing all the way inside of front desk to take down 1, but Reed's tank will just move on in. He's taken this little bit of control, taken maybe the the quiet of the round into his advantage, but Slothy is still the only one really getting active between these two teams. Yokai also going in, gives Slothy an opportunity to go for 3, despite being felled by Jay, who loses some HP to somebody retaking square in turn. This is match point for Nocturns. If I've ever seen it, Night Out Jay is good enough to stop it. 6-3 for Nocturns right now. 1 round away from what will be a very impressive win on Bank if they can muster it.
Yeah, brilliant upset potentially being brewed out here by Nocturns. Don't want to jinx anything just yet, but just the general pacing of that round just seemed really off for Arial Arise. We saw a couple of times, at least on the side of Nocturns, they would kind of miss out on those key aspects like I've talked about a few times beforehand, where they would just kind of hop into sight, maybe jump the gun a bit, and not have everything fully taken care of. But that's been a constant almost, it feels like right now, Carter, for Arial Arise. Again, want to mention the point on Slothy where they weren't able to deal with the roam game before fully committing to that top floor push around. And then on that round in particular, when trying to push in towards the site after getting the back wall opened on up and gathering tons of information, they seemed very disjoint, almost as if they just weren't playing as a full team on that round. They had Reed try to just solo push his way in and not have any coverage. He didn't even have Case either, so he couldn't even try to trick and go for that defuse as well. Again, it just seemed like a last-second changeup on the playstyle for Arial Arise, and it just seemed like they weren't comfortable in enacting that kind of strategy, where, as for Nocturns, when they go for something like that, it's something they kind of plan off the bat and seem very well adjusted to attempting that.
10 seconds to go.
We really all need to stop just predicting the same team, John.
5 seconds remaining.
Like, why do we keep doing it? This always happens.
It doesn't, like, always happen. We have, like...
but, like, it happens enough for always is not too far off from reality.
Okay. I'm not even gonna, like, argue with you on this point. I'm just gonna be like that stubborn teenager being like, whatever.
You know, I'm right. You know, I'm right.
Yeah, that's the whole point of why it's the stubborn teenager joke.
I know. I just want to. I'm rubbing salt in the wound.
All right then. Okay.
I was that stubborn teenager, so I know how it feels. See if Arial Arise, if Nocturns are able to muster match point. We'll see how much Arial Arise can muster to make 3 rounds in a row, just like Nocturns did on their defenses just now. We have a roam on our hands. Surprise, surprise. Who would have thought? Lackey and Slothy, the duo inside of CEO right now. A couple players moving into main lobby. It's Freak right now, likely trying to play off of the 1-0 cam. Reed Adams has sent out onto one of the marble pillars. An EE1D goes as well, but there's nobody really to play off it from Arial.
So far, Arial Arise looking to not really show all their cards just yet, keeping them close to their chest. Wanting to play as almost like a true team. It's kind of stacked up all together. The only person by themselves is Mo, and he's now gone. No one around his position to go trade him. All that information with the EE1Ds are now gone. That's a huge opening kill to find for Nocturns, because now really they only have to worry about this lobby push, and if they're aware of that, they could definitely kind of tailor their playstyle in this next minute 20 to perfectly counter that. But as of right now, they don't seem too concerned. They're still, for the most part, just sitting up near the bottom floor. But as we have a little bit more of an insight as to how exactly Nocturns are playing currently in the next 70 seconds, we actually notice both Poison and the Valkyrie are still in this top floor. But as I say it, I give Poison the good old curse, and now he's dead via the LMG.
That's a rough one. Poison right there. Thankfully, I don't think they droned Slothy in stock a second go around, though a drone drives right by him. I'm actually not too sure. They certainly know Lackey's position. Put a nade on the landing at the bottom of Marble Stairs. But do they know where Slothy is? Well, they certainly do now. Tags up Reed Sync, something fierce, but he deals more damage in turn, and the roam is now dealt with. But only 40 seconds left. So much time dedicated by Arial to clear out that top floor, and they get 2 kills for it, but not much else gained down towards the site, and still some hatches to open up. Jay taking a lot of time, or at least a little bit of time, to open up that elevator hatch. No solid entry points for Arial right now beyond server, and even then, you have Nyx with 2, now 1 smoke canisters left to waste a little bit more time, and Lackey C4 as well. Exiled with an important kill, still holding control inside a garage, and Jay on ADS is at perhaps the worst time possible. Reed Sync gets 1, but it's still a 2v2, and that means Reed Sync is the only one to cover Reed. You'll hold for right now, nobody pushing forward. C4 goes abysmally short. That's a Jonah throw if I've ever seen one from one of our unranked games. You gotta do better than that if you want to win this game. Now Nyx has got to clutch the 1v2, and Reed just watching it perfectly. Seemed like a very winnable round for Nocturns despite the disadvantage, and then nobody pushed the planter.
Well, a good bounce back at least for Arial Arise, and able to at least punish Nocturns for not immediately getting aggressive there towards the final 20 seconds to actually stop the plant from going down, and solely relying on those Toxic Babes to do all the heavy lifting in the last few moments of that round. But in general, the round just did not look all that clean by Arial Arise. Again, Exod found the opening kill. Mo just got tucked into bed at that point, and all of Garage was just a huge problem throughout that entire round until Exod was eventually dealt with after just doing so much for his team. And again, if it weren't for the fact that Nocturnes just wanted to play a bit safer in that 2 versus 2, this could have definitely been ended out here 7-3. But Arial Arise, they get a second chance at salvation and now have to try their best to go and attack up against this open area site once again for Nocturnes.
But it's always the tricky position, especially after a half that really hasn't looked too promising in many areas. Be a little slow, be a little late just once, and that's it. That's the ball game. That's the half. You lose 7-4 or 7-5, even if they're able to win this next round. Of course, I always say that, and teams manage to come back whenever I do, so perhaps I gave the curse or the blessing to Nocturnes and Arial Arise, respectively, depending on what happens. See Jay switch to the Jackal to aid themselves on that full clear, and, well, I suppose that's good, but really their problem in many ways last round was just being a little bit lackluster with that droning and overall clearing out those individual roamers. It ended up working, but it took way too long.
And mainly because of that kind of lackluster clear in terms of using that information, using the drones to force back the roam game, we have seen a lot more confidence and damage done by both Slothy and Exile, which has really been just a constant nightmare for Arial Arise. If we continue to see that problem, then this might be the final nail in the coffin, like I mentioned earlier, for Arial Arise. But they've got Jay and the Jackal. They're hoping to try to actually fix their main issue, in particular when attacking on Bank. So I like the change up there for Arial Arise. And so far, their drone game looks pretty fine as of now. They just need to fully confirm where this top floor defense is currently lying in and if they're ready to fall back or not.
And they've done some solid work in the first minute. One Yokai down. They've got Mo on that rappel to hold this entire hallway on the second floor for as long as he's alive. They still haven't dealt with Slothy, and so far, that has been enough to swing rounds in Nocturne's favor. He was predicted to underperform going into this based off his SCS season, but in this season and this game, Slothy has proven why he belongs on this roster. He won't get any kills in that realm, but he'll do enough. He'll get away with his life to aid Poison down below, but right as I say that, Freak marches down those main stairs and makes me eat my words with all the praise I heaped.
One of the key players that I also had brought up earlier is now gone by the hands of Freak, someone who's been relatively silent overall in the second half, but is now trying to prove himself to make sure there is a good chance of overtime here for Arial Arise. Still, this light lurk game has not been dealt with fully. Poison and Lackey are sitting quite comfortably both in between Tellers and Archives, despite the fact that Reed Adams still is on the buck and could still go for vertical, but as of right now, he's got the case, so he'll have to make that vertical play very fast if he wants to be that important on this round.
Well, piece by piece, Arial Arise are starting to put the pieces together, for lack of a better word. They've managed to not only get some kills in that vertical, but take down Lackey inside of Archives as well. 4v2 now, though Nocturnes still have some important utility. Nyx might still have a Yokai, unsure what happened. We know one got shot, the other might still be in play. We'll have to see, but we do know Exod certainly at the forefront with one CE4 as well to play with, depending on where the attack ends up pushing on in, which they haven't really decided yet. No walls opened up. The castle barricade in front of the main door still closed. Just now opening hatches, but not a lot of time left. Nyx swings and ends up losing the fight to Freak, though he dies to an EDD. Jay fills the gap in small office, but Reed Sync with the final kill seals it out. Just one more round to go to our second OT game in a row if Arial Arise still has the energy in them.
A very meticulous clear out by Arial Arise, but it was a very good one at that still. They were able to get rid of Slothy immediately. That allowed so much to be done in terms of that vertical. And even if you don't find a kill via that vertical, it's such a high risk to still be just sitting in that general vicinity that Nocturne still had to fall back just a tad bit, which gave a huge opening for Arial Arise to snatch even more kills on that round. And force that 4 versus 2 with really only a couple things keeping them at bay. And honestly, that was more or less just the cap can traps. If anything, the yokais weren't even that big of a problem because Freak was able to wide swing and force the Echo to be in a do or die spot and not even utilize that vital piece of util. So that was a great cleanup by Arial Arise. And again, just the overall emphasis on that roam clear needing to be a must was absolutely spot on for him in that round.
Have a timeout by Nocturns to try to stop the bleeding, see if they can just get one singular round on the board to seal this out in regulation. Can they do it? We'll just have to see as we go forward. CEO and Office will be our, well, potentially final defense from Nocturns if they can get that one round win on the board. And it is a difficult one. As we said, John, if the attack is able to get that bomb down, they're usually able to win. But Arial Arise so far have struggled to get in positions to put that bomb down. Even on basement, where Reed Sync just barely won it. Still took a whole inhuman amount of effort to win that out. And last round, it still came down to the kills for Arial Arise, despite the man advantage that they had going into the site take. Fortunately, I believe Poison just DC'd. So we'll see if they're able to get him back in, or what happens there.
Well, both Poison and Jay have disconnected. Wow. Rehost called. All right, then. So that's going to happen. Here's like a bit of a server crash has gone in through. So that's going to happen here. And we'll hope to get that resolved as quickly as humanly possible. But, you know, it sucks to have that happen when we are so close to seeing a potential outcome here in this matchup, Carter.
Like, why? Like, we're round 12, max regulation, and not one player doesn't disconnect. Two players disconnect.
Yep.
Like, why? Of all the times. Why? We'll have to see how it ends up working out, of course. I mean, thankfully here, John, as opposed to, like, a round 1 disconnect, nice thing about a round 12 disconnect, we have rounds 1 through 11 that we could talk about and how that might affect this one. We've also seen the lineup that they were going for along with the site that they were playing. Saw Maestro in play to provide some intel inside of the site in case maybe Arial Arise decide to go for a smoke execute. They have those evil eyes to look through, but even then, just some intel on the site will never hurt anybody. So if Arial Arise do get to that plant, which they've struggled to do so far on the attack, even in the rounds they've won, Nocturnes have tools to deal with it.
And in general, when we saw CEO in play last time for Nocturnes, a big reason why we had the side of Arial Arise actually lose that round was just how disconnected they were as a team. They were going in for a lot of solo plays, hoping to maybe, you know, throw kind of like a bolt in the machine just at a bad time, throw a wrench in there as well, and it just didn't really seem to work out all that well against Nocturne. So maybe having the pacing be a bit slower perhaps and being much more combined for Arial Arise could be the key thing to actually spice things up a bit for them. But again, you talked about the intel game and a whole lot of denial. If we see just an emphasis on trying to get that plant down, it could still be a very tricky situation for Arial Arise, even if they end up playing a bit more like a team in this final round potentially.
Especially if Slothy starts getting involved again on that roam. Even if they don't get stocked up too much, you know, let's say they're able to be efficient with their drones and push them back to the site. Slothy has still been the biggest performer for Nocturne so far, having some of the most impactful moments for Nocturne so far. So him remaining in the round, even if he is pushed off of, say, a roam, he's moved back to the site, he's still somebody who could throw a spanner in the works for Arial Arise, no matter how things look for the previous 2 minutes 30, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I believe on CEO, he's playing around, like, front office, so that could be the position that Arial Arise focuses a lot of their attention on. Once they start to, you know, maybe clear some way into the site, making sure he doesn't have that long angle to peek into square could be priority number 1.
Well, looks like we're still having a little bit of time to get everyone fully amped up in here. Seems like we've got at least a whole half Arial Arise stacked up, so at least the rehost for them on their half is looking quite quick. Whole lot on the line. Like we had mentioned beforehand, one round could really be the make or break, and I am at least glad to see Nocturnes able to really put Arial Arise on their toes. We thought this, of course, to be a much faster match for sure and a definite win for Arial Arise, but I guess when you have not much to lose, you kind of just want to give it your all, and that can sometimes be a little bit too much to handle, even for some of the best teams inside of CL. So I gotta at least give a ton of credit for Nocturnes to at least guarantee overtime, if not win this matchup altogether, depending on how this next round plays out.
I mean, one benchmark that I know Connor mentioned between these two teams was how they performed against LSR. And Nocturnes, you know, had a very close game against LSR on this and they managed to win just barely 7-5 against them, if I do believe correct. Yeah, oh no, lost 5-7, excuse me, but still a very close game against LSR, and this was when they were in their peak. Arial Arise, when they ended up winning it, it was, you know, it was a little bit later in the game. It was where LSR were starting to be on the downturn where they were in CL, and that was when Arial Arise won at 7-2, so maybe that benchmark that we used, maybe not as accurate as we ended up thinking. Maybe it wasn't a good predictor. Then again, John, it is also best of one. The nice thing about BO1s, anything can happen.
Yeah, really any team's game at that point, unlike the BO3s, which normally favor the more, I suppose, regiment teams, the more Arial Arise-like teams, I suppose, and not so much more of the Nocturne S kind of compositions here. Heading on into the last round, at least in terms of the regulation rounds, all the way up to 12. Looks like we still have all the same comps. You can, of course, repick even after a rehost, so we might see Arial Rise's lineup change just slightly, but for Nocturnes, this will all be what they were trying to rock with before the rehost had gone in through. Still that big emphasis on plant denial and tons of information, the Evilize and Yokais like you had brought up, and also those smoke grenades as well. So for Arial Rise, it would probably be a good idea just to kind of keep Nocturnes at a very far distance, make sure they cannot go for this plant denial, and really trying to make people like Nyx and also like Poison almost enemy number one in this next round, or in this upcoming round, I should say.
Yeah, Poison will certainly be a good player to get off the board, just not having to worry about that all the... Maybe Reed will try to make things quick just with the Dokkaebi. You know, we talked about, you know, maybe Poison will get active. Maybe Slothy will get active. You know what could minimize that? Just hitting a Dokkaebi call, then sending it on into the site before anyone can react. Doubt we'll see that. Just again, the presence of those Maestro cams inside of the site, and also it being round 12. Maybe a bit of a risk you don't really want to take right now. But it would certainly be a humorous way, especially after that lengthy rehost, to end this out.
Even with the rehost as well, it still gives you plenty of ample time to communicate, you know, discuss what went wrong for each of your players, each of your actual setups themselves, especially on a round that really is kind of leaning in the balance of who's going to come out as a winner, who gets a second chance again at Salvation, like I had brought up earlier in the matchup. It is definitely a lot to discuss between both Arial Rise and also Nocturnes as well. That could really tip the balance in a favorable way for one of these two teams. Cases dropped on top of the roof, but the main aspect to look at here is the fact the back wall has been opened up leading into sight. So as of now, looks like Arial Rise is still keenly focused on trying to go for this plant position, but still finds some sort of kill. Maybe stopping some of this major util from being on the board early on would be a really nice touch-up on top of that major cake here for Arial Rise.
Smart destruction going out as a Selma charge rips open a portion of the wall over by that long hallway, as I mentioned, as I imagine it would be, with Mo being on ace and him preferring that position. Wouldn't be surprised if he dedicated some hard breaching utility over towards that area. Wall also opened up, looking into square. This is where Slothy got a 3K, or I believe maybe a 2-piece. He got 3 kills overall, but at least 2 kills just on that long angle, looking over into square. First Dokkaebi call goes out, giving away the position for some of these defenders to the attackers close by, but nobody really in a spot to play off of it from Arial Arise, though might be able to spot Exod prone on this position, so he's got to be a little bit careful, but overall still not much. Though right as I say that, there's Rietzing. First kill of round 12.
70 seconds left. Yeah, it looked like Exile was trying to counteract the upside repel by actually hiding underneath the kill holes, but he'll hop back to the actual reinforced walls to not get killed, as he again is a very important player to have alive in this position currently. The Evil Eyes, Yokai's, smokes, all in tandem could just make this site impenetrable in the next few moments here. But Arial Rise, they've got that lead-off kill. They've noticed where Nyx is playing at too. They could definitely try to isolate, as long as they have those cutoff angles established, to make sure no one can actually back up Nyx. And Reed lands yet another beautiful kill on such a dire round here for Arial.
So far, dominating square. He'll move in. He didn't find much success doing this last time, and he'll fail at the breach. He's got 2 kills. The poison could have gone huge. That could have been the player, but instead, maybe it's Nyx. He flanks up. He's the only one left. He's got these Yokais, but not nearly enough time to win the round off of them. As Arial move in to finish him off, we'll go to our second OT of the day, as Rietzing goes big in the early round, but it's a team effort to smother Nocturnes as we move into the final few rounds.
And although we still saw Rietzing kind of hop in by himself, it looked like he was just trying to be more of that spearhead, and he had already done that before he even thought about hopping in the site, finding those 2 kills, and just disrupting everything that Nocturnes had in plan to guarantee a regulation win, 7-5. Now we get to see overtime, and it looks like that momentum has surely caught up with Nocturnes, as looks like they are a bit weaker heading in through the rest of this matchup. But I mean, hey, it's still a neck and neck game. The weakness there, it seems like a bit of an overstatement, but it's much more diluted from what I actually make it out to be here in this matchup, Carter.
I'll say, pleasant surprise coming back to CL after a couple weeks off. You know, I went up, you know, did the NAL, had Easter off. I was missing some CL. I was missing some CL chaos. And the pleasant surprise is, sure, it's been overtime, hasn't really been that chaotic. At least these two games in overtime. Yeah, it's been chaotic, and now we might not have been able to predict what happened, or maybe a play surprised us. But these two teams have overall played pretty well for what we could expect, especially Nocturns going into this day, not expecting really to put up too much of a fight, able to take Arial Arise to OT. Even if they lose the next 2 rounds here and only come away with a point, it could be problematic given their position in the standings, but overall, that'd be a win in my book, at least morally. Maybe not morally. Ideally.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been an ideal opening kill for Lackey, to say the least. Reed Adams is going to thankfully not get headshot, just a couple of body shots there with the P10 Roni, which is basically just like throwing rubber at him from that distance, so he'll be all right, especially with Fink on the board. Interested to see Arial Arise not opt to bring out the Jackal this time around, especially when you have the entire map to roam with here for Nocturns, and their roam game has been very disgusting against Arial Arise. But this time around, the one major change that I like for Arial so far is the fact I believe they have more than one person backing up Mo in this position, or at least they did for a few moments. He might be by himself once again, but at least the Lion scans are here to back him up to a certain degree. There goes a flashbang, at least across in the background. The swing comes in through, but Nyx loses the fight, and now Arial, in the first minute, take the advantage and almost have garage control, but they still need to worry about Lackey, but there goes the buddy system to force that Mozzie away.
And Mo has faced some problems in this position. He was able to get, I believe, some headway into it on the first baseman attack, but the second go-around, he was completely shut down along with his teammate in this area. So able to reclaim some of that former glory from round number 7. Excellent for overall for their chances. Reetsink also spots one down below inside of Archives. It's poisoned right now, but the C4 sadly misses. He can still play and maybe rotate back, but Lackey C4 actually lands and downs Freak. Both Garage players, I hyped them up. I said they made it work. One falls and the other downed, and likely irrecoverable based on Arial Arise's current positioning.
On formation, and notice he's been down, and just one Finka boost left to pick himself back up. That is huge. Maybe you don't want to overextend and get too aggressive, but still having this cutoff angle in Garage is going to be gigantic for Arial Arise, especially since they're still looking to maybe go in this plant position, but they can't get too ahead of themselves in this moment, as there is still a roam game alive and well in these final 50 seconds, and it looks like Reetsink will be the first of many to try to challenge that actual roam game.
Poison can take this fight with a shotgun, put him down with one pump. It takes 2, but still enough to finish the job. He'll hold square as Diffuser dropped down inside of open area for the moment. Somebody's got to pick it up. Somebody's got to make it work. Oh, it's not an open area. Excuse me. Misread that. And it doesn't matter, because Freak's in sight, John. He is just in, and he is dead. So it doesn't matter that I said that again. They might have the Diffuser, but they've lost that opening that Freak gave them. Reed now has to creep down marble stairs, and alongside Jay probe for an opening that might not ever present itself. He peeks Lackey with a nade in his hand, but instead he walks right in front of Reed, and now they do have that opening. The Finka might have faltered, but the Zero and the Maverick could have this. The nade goes into Vault. Slothy, he's slowly moving up. Jay's the only one who can cover, but there's one in front of him and one to his back. He got one. The C4 goes wide. He flicks onto the other. Match point for Arial Arise, and again, a sloppy round, but still a win in the end.
And that one grenade messed up everything for Nocturns. It denied the tag team push in there to stop the plant from going down. It gave Arial Arise the room to breathe to allow Jay to find not one, but both of those kills, and now grant the advantage back in the favor of Arial Arise, as they have been dying to get that back for such a long time in this matchup. A close call once again, and that's kind of been the lead-off story, is just two completely different Titans from across the stage now able to duke it out here on Bank, and one round away again, potentially in gigantic air quotations, Carter, to seeing someone win out this matchup. Man, it's been a complete excitement, and overall, this has been a pretty close CL day so far, besides, I guess, maybe the first matchup of the day, and that's really been it, I suppose.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are having some issues with the server for all 10 players in the lobby right now, so we're going to throw to a break real quick, and then we can finally see who wins between Arial Arise and Nocturns after this.
But mankind won't be destroyed. The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence of that.
Welcome back, everybody. Managed to get everyone back in the lobby, and hopefully hopefully, only at max 2 rounds remaining, you're not blessed with any kind of issues. John, especially for this being Nocturne's last game of the stage, really, the universe is really making him fight for it.
It would be nice for them to end it on a high note, potentially beating one of the top teams and kind of putting yourself out there as still, a redeeming team overall. But they do need to win this one to really go that full distance at the very least, and then still have a fighting chance to get the actual win, 8-7 in this matchup on Bank. And whipping out the element of surprise, the pocket strats, last second poison opting to go on the Amaru here. We talked about the gamble factor of a lot of plays that are made by Nocturns. I mean, that just screams gamble, especially with the case. He's going to go up the hatch from basement. I can almost guarantee that, Carter.
That's what I was going to say. If we can expect an Amaru, it might be like, oh, first floor, well, what's he going to do? Go in through office window and do absolutely nothing? Well, no, silly. What this man is doing, he's going to Maru up the hatch in open area. That's the plan. Probably going to send the Finca and maybe somebody else up Marble to acquire control, then have somebody play at the castle barricade, open up that castle barricade in front of Printer, have somebody play in Janitor as well, John. I don't know if that's exactly the play, but it just might be.
Only issue with this potential Amaru play is there's a lack of general team play and lack of genuine coverage. You might just let the case be dropped in an unrecoverable spot and also lose your life. Mo's playing very close to that hatch. Reed Adams watching around kind of near the beeper area, but ends up dying to Lackey. Here comes the Gara hook. Mo overextends, trying to outduel somebody. Jay finds one, but then again, there's the lack of general coverage. And just like that, everything falls apart for Nocturns as their one gamble ended up being a huge loss of currency, as there is almost no way Exod can bring this one back in a 1-4. They've got all the time, all the resources, at least in their own pocket, to bring this one back, but they have no idea that Reedsing is playing inside of Archives, and that's going to be the round over and done with in the blink of an eye. Just as we came back from the rehost, the game is a victory for Arial Arise, 8-6.
And why did that fail? How did it fail, John? We saw the mastermind himself, Drip Boolin, make that take work against Space Station Gaming. How did it fail? Well, one key part of that, the part that makes it work, is acquiring control of Marble Stairs. Them being able to push up and cover the planter, because beyond that, if you don't have somebody watching above and all you're relying on is maintenance and the window looking into Printer, you don't really have much to watch the planter, unfortunately. The 2 players who were pushing up Marble were stopped completely at the top of those stairs, and Mo was able to kill Poison, and the entire strat falls apart. So overall, nice try by Nocturns, but Arial Arise retained their victory, and we all don't look like fools for predicting them. And we'll throw it back to the desk to break down what was still a very close game and a nice one by Nocturns.
This was one of those matches, Connor, that it was getting to the point where whichever way it went, you were going to feel a little gutted for the team that lost. I think both of these teams put in a valiant effort. I don't know if maybe that little break kind of maybe messed things up for Nocturns at the end, not to take away from Arial Arise, but Nocturns getting that point is huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely massive, because it pretty much, with a giant asterisk, saves them from relegations, which is huge for them. It puts them on 14 points after the heist forfeit that they will receive. And now you have teams like Outlast and Aqualix who are on like 7 points, 10 points, unless they go absolutely huge against some very difficult opponents. It does pretty much keep Nocturns in for next stage, where with the growth that they've continued to show game to game against these top level opponents, does seem promising.
And Tanner, that point streak by Arial Arise looked like it was in jeopardy. They were down 6-3 and they end up just charging back. Does that mean it was five rounds in a row? Were they able to do that? Unbelievable.
Yeah, and like most teams, I think will fold under that kind of pressure. And I got to commend them from the champion mentality. I'm not trying to sound too biased, but
hey, to everyone listening, he was ripping on them behind the scenes. That's kind of like
good.
the father that cares too much, you know?
Oh my God, it was just blunder after blunder after blunder from Arial Arise. And I got to give Nocturnes credit. You know, they had to come into this with like throwing everything on the table, all their one-off tricks. And they had to come and perform. And I just want to highlight, you know, we talked about him before the game started, was Exod. Xad was a player where, like, he needs to show up in a massive way. And I think today he did. I think there were some very pivotal rounds that he was absolutely influential on, especially on the defensive half, that kind of afforded Nocturns this chance to get this vital point that they needed so desperately.
Yeah, he was a lot more impactful on the defensive side, and that was nice to see because on the Nomad, when he was playing the flank watch and more of a supportive role on the attacking side, he'd always looked fine, but the big thing was defensively not that good, but he definitely made strides and was a good part of Nocturne's success today.
Well, we've got Reed ready for the interview. That would be Reed with an A, Reed Adams, and we'll ask him a few questions about their huge victory. Reed, congratulations on the win, but I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't looking like we would be here for a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, they actually had a really good game plan, like, going into it. Like, they had good bans, they had, a solid, game plan as far as, like, what to do in the macro, but, we started catching on at the end, and so, luckily we were able to pull it back.
Does that speak to the kind of success that your team expects from yourselves, that even if you have maybe a bit of a start where you're not coming out of the gate hot, you learn as the game progresses? Is that what you and your teammates do?
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. We have some of the smartest players like in CL, 100%, because we have obviously me and Jay's experience, and then the other guys are obviously taking a lot away from like what we do, and like they're catching on to what we do. And we also had Call Out in the past. He's also a really smart player. He's obviously coaching one of the best teams in NA right now. I think the best actually. So I mean, we've all kind of like learned with smart players, and we're all doing that on our own now. So it's really helped us.
And strategy is such a huge part of Siege, but there's sometimes when you just need players that can go out and kill everybody, and Freak was just on a tear today. He had that massive 4K, almost an ace, but he was unfortunately denied by a wall.
Yeah, no, I mean that was you definitely can't help but laugh at that. We gave him the green light on that one. We told him to send it. He just he was seeing red. I don't think he knew his HP. So.
Well, I noticed that you made the sacrifice for that, trying to run out and get some more maybe body info as it was, but unfortunately,
yeah, we were definitely playing to kill. We wanted him to get the ace, but yeah, that was a funny moment. That was for sure.
Well, a wildly entertaining game. Thank you so much. And once again, with this win, overtime either way, you guys have points in every game. Congratulations, Reed.
Thank you. Means a lot.
Have a good one.
You too.
Well, Arial Arise continuing to impress all season long. And you know what? I think, Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, this does for the day put them into first place with this win.
Yes, it does. I was gonna say it even if you didn't. They're in first place now. They just overtook one shot who did leap over them by a point, but overtime win, that counts as 2, so they're right back in there.
Okay, well, we are 3 matches down. The next one coming up after this quick break, don't go anywhere, is going to be Took the Kids taking on